We've called this session Extraordinary, and that was because Dornbracht very much felt that instead of inviting everyone here to ask the question, what the hell's going on, we should at least try to think about how we could describe what's going on in the design world at the moment. And Mike Murray came up with this concept of the extraordinary as one way of possibly looking at all the diverse things that are happening in design, or a way of pulling together undercurrents of that, or a way of looking for a new theory of design or an ism of design. And what I asked Mike to do, and his face fell when I said it, was, Mike, why don't you present to us what this idea is? Why don't you put together a little 10-minute presentation and explain what this is, and then all the rest of us can ask you questions about it and disagree with you and attack you or criticize you, but we'll at least then be able to maybe go away with this thinking, you know what, this concept of the extraordinary really is a possible way that we could look at design now. And it was interesting and not at all planned that it came up as one of the 4 possible design ways of looking at design in this morning's session. So I'm going to hand it straight over to Mike now. And Mike, if you'd like to tell us all about your idea of extraordinary.
Thank you so much. So, the funny thing is, sometimes we're sitting together and we talk about what's really happening in the world, and we experience this quite often, that there is an urge that some questions pop up we would like to share in a broader scale, and that's why we came up as well with the format Dornbracht Conversations. And this time I really thought as well extraordinary, because when we were talking about the fact new normal, and there's maybe a new rise on, the funny thing is, when we were thinking about pictures we had to get together, of course, conditionally, I thought about the ply table of Jasper Morrison, but somehow the next image was Lady Gaga. And I thought, how is this possible? Because I think really that's what we experience, the time changes, the culture, the behaviors. Maybe this has something to do with generations. And what I thought, what is really good maybe to start, is I asked myself, why extraordinary? And when you see this word, the beauty of this word is actually when you put a slash in between, zack, you feel directly there are 2 energies. And it's like talking about, at the same time, about both sides of a medal. So I think these days it's very important when we have different discussions, we are very take in consideration the context where these products appear and what kind of people has to deal with them. And so the question was really, when you go back, what is ordinary or what is extraordinary? The same thing, the way we condition is really, you see a simple shape and you think, okay, this is how we learn design, actually, on a very surface way. And everything what was a little bit more decorative maybe was extraordinary. But to understand this, because this doesn't work these days anymore, that simple, I asked myself what happened within the last maybe 10, 15 years. So it's a little, go back to the 90s, we had this formula of anything goes. And I think this was very strongly linked to the appearance of computer. And through the computers, through the software, suddenly we made this jump out from coming a kind of analog, material-oriented culture into a more digital, more virtual. And what I like to point out is as well, when we have this discussion, of course, from the profession, we are architects, curators, designers, and we try to do our best. And I think the first panel has shown this very beautifully in a way that it's really a kind of an academic way to think about these things, take everything concerned, the way we produce products these days. But we shouldn't forget that we're talking as well to customers, to people, and they don't have this kind of education. And my part as thinking about communication is I understand as well I'm a human being, and at some day I have to die. And on this way, I don't want to have only worries. I want to have as well kind of fun. And when Marcus said in the end, maybe design, the movement, is a kind of designism itself, then I think it stays for me as well about this playfulness, which we shouldn't forget. Of course we have the worries. And so that's why I understood with this movement, we had a really fantastic, great time to this very special day, and it was 9/11. And to me as well, when I think about Memphis, which was as well a very strong movement for me, but I like very much the archaic point of view. It wasn't really the design. The design was more like the expression of an attitude. But what I think is design, the shape, it's really always representing something we like to have a connection to, a story, that it becomes a memory for us. And with 9/11, of course, the smiley, of course everything faded away, and we had a kind of huge situation because we understood there is a kind of insecurity within our life implanted, and we can't get this out. And I remember clearly that we had a great reflection around this time. We had a lot of analysis about consumer behavior, and somehow during this period I felt that design somehow became ethical. And in this moment as well, or let's say in this, during this time, everything what looked ordinary, we thought, ooh, it's maybe essential. Even what Matteo Cris said as well about the effect, let's say the movement of Jasper Morrison. It is really a very thin line to understand something is very simply made, but not banal. And I think at that time we were really starving for something essential. And extraordinary became somehow average. So we wanted to have everything really smooth, really simple, very minimal, and it went on for a certain time. But life is an evolution. And at some point it had to stop because we realized as well that everything what is essential is somehow yet a bit dry, maybe even boring. And so this is what I mean, that we have to take in consideration that every day, or let's say every year, there are coming new generations into the whole game. And they have a different understanding about what we are talking. And I think that's why it's very important to understand the importance of this next big revolution came through Apple. I mean, we have seen as well as several panelists has sent already some images. And it's not about the hymn, another hymn about Apple. It's just these people somehow understood to design information. And especially now with the iPhone or the iPad, when we look at it, the hardware is actually quite ordinary. But what makes it so interesting is the inside. And the inside is digital. And I think this is what's really about, that we understand that the fact that we're having the opportunity now through these digital devices going directly into the information, we understand that the industrial age, where you used to work, you have a strong grid, a structure, this kind of 9-to-5 job, that this is really fading away, that we experience now a world which is more like a complete connection. It seems like that the world is becoming a huge content provider, and the structure from 9 to 5 is actually turning into 24/7. And this is a kind of pressure, because what we experience in the communication field, where all these products are appear as well, is the economy of attention. Everywhere, everything is a huge information of, let's say, a data flow, and it affects us tremendously. And I'd like to point out as well that we somehow become very much dependent on this kind of, we call it a news strip. The fact that we have Facebook and all these other blogs and what we have seen in the beginning, everything is everywhere right now. And what I like within this situation is that we are able to give in commentaries, so we can say we like this comment, we like this product, we don't like it. And what happened is through this that we are becoming more and more aware of the fact that we are able to speak up. We're becoming aware that we are individuals. And this brings me to this major situation. Are we afraid of what's going on because we understand the world isn't so clear to classify anymore as we used to have it? Or all these possibilities which come through virtualization, digitalization, maybe it's an incredible opportunity. We should love it. We should embrace it. And this brings me then back to the first slide. What is ordinary? What is extraordinary? And I can't tell you really, if I see this clear table, which used to be a very ordinary, simple design, maybe the way today it's made, this kind of simple table, the story behind, can make it to a very extraordinary product. So which means that the shape is one thing, but it's really about the story, the context. And this has a lot to do with the customer, because there are some questions, for example, is maybe the new normal we're talking about a kind of a new openness that we have to understand? We should open up to this world. We shouldn't hang on to too much hang on the, let's say, the monoculture where we're coming from, what I called as well somehow a bit provocative, maybe it's old school, that everything is happening at the same time, that yes, a ply table is normal, but yes, somehow Lady Gaga could be normal as well, in the way for the generations who are out there and experience here. And the next question is, we always had this, either this or that. And I think maybe it's really more about as well as, instead of either or. So we have to see, these are the two sides of one medal I'm interested in. That the only thing I can say for me, what's really clear is that design dogmas, that the whole idea about dictating is really losing its weight. And what stays left is actually the individuality. And this is what I can say, that individuality is ever more victorious over informity. And so I would like really to go against this design dogma, because I think people experience more and more that we are all very different. And the way where we're coming from, the way we are educated, makes a huge difference when we look at a product, because you will get this always. And some people will say, yes, I really like it, I think it's nice. And at the same time, I'm not sure. And it's the same thing, they love it, they hate it. And what's interesting now is that what's for someone can be very ordinary, for the other it could be extraordinary. And that's it.
Thank you very much.